Well, good day to you. It is March the 2nd, 2023, and I hope you're great wherever you happen to be. That actually rhymes. I'm a poet, and I guess I didn't know it. But anyway, my name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs and quickly point out, if you are new to these videos, remind you if you've heard some of these videos before, that the best thing to do when you hear this information is to start to investigate it for yourself. I've included links in the description portion of these videos that take you to websites that talk about this information in some way. So hopefully you'll take an extra step or two and just look into it for yourself for however long you want to do it. And then and only then will you see if there's any truth to this information. Want to join the discussion? Post comments. Post your questions in the comments section. I'll try to answer those questions in the next video. You can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. I also really appreciate it when people send me links to articles that talk about what we talk about here in some way. And then I repost it up on Facebook, and I've even had people repost some of the posts that I put up on Facebook. So thank you, everybody, for doing that. But since I put up a video just a few hours ago, Your Light Be Free commented, Vanessa Rivera, Ray, and Jaime. Thank you, everybody, for commenting, and in the case of Ray, sending me an email. I really do appreciate it. All right, now let's get on into it. All right, Jaime, what did you have to say? Now, you commented a few times over the past few videos, and I didn't necessarily respond to every single one because I didn't know if there wasn't anything for me to respond to, really. I was just letting you say what you said. But apparently, you were looking for a response from me. And you said in the last post, well, clearly you cannot debunk or refute anything I have said. So, what is the point of saying you are going to address even those who disagree, but you simply don't? I guess you actually did. I guess if you actually did address what I said, you are worried that others that are believing this crap would start questioning. Okay, so first thing, I never said that I address every comment that comes my way, whether somebody disagrees with me or not. What I said was I appreciate every comment that comes my way, whether you agree or disagree. And then I made a point to even point out to you that I even appreciate the comments that you did because you've been taking time out of your day to comment on my channel. This isn't gaslighting. I'm just telling you, I do appreciate it. I might not agree with a single thing that you said, but I do appreciate the fact that you did that. Now I leave up comments. As a general rule, I'll leave up a comment, even if they are totally in disagreement with what I have to say, as long as they're not disruptive, trolling, and repetitive, or are disrespectful to me or somebody else. And then the last one that I would take down is if you claim to be Maitreya, I'm going to take that down because that's causing confusion. So that's under the disruption category. Everything else I pretty much leave up. I might not address every comment because what's to address? When you comment and you say things like, you Luciferian Masons are hilarious, that means nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a Luciferian Mason. I've never heard that term before. I don't even think there's anything remotely true to being a Luciferian Mason. But apparently you find them funny. And I said something to that effect and you got offended by it. So, okay. I was just trying to make light of something that you said. I didn't call you any nasty names. I didn't say you were stupid for saying something like that. So why you would think that I was ridiculing you, I didn't, right? But I'm not here to debunk or refute anything that anybody says to me. I'm here simply to speak the truth as I see it and not argue about it. That's it. So a lot of times if I dive in and I comment about every little thing that somebody says, it might at the very least appear like I'm arguing with somebody, let alone I might actually be arguing with somebody. And I don't want to do that. I got too much stuff going on in my life to try to start doing that kind of stuff. And I don't want it to go down that road. But also, too, I also respect your opinion on things. You might not respect mine, but I respect your opinion. I might not agree with it, but I respect it. So, like I said, as long as it's not disrespectful, I usually leave it up. So if I'm not concerned about somebody not believing this information, you might not trust me by saying that, but that's you. But I know who I am. You have no idea who I am. You don't know how tall I am. You don't know where I came from. You don't know anything about the people in my life. You don't know anything about how I am at work. You don't know anything about me. But yet you claim to know who I am and my interior motives on stuff and what I'm here and why I'm doing this. You have nothing. You know nothing about me, as I know nothing about you, right? And so there's nothing wrong with that, but that's the truth of the matter. I do find it amazingly arrogant when people like to post things like they know what I'm really saying or really thinking. You know it. You know. How do you know it? You know what I'm saying? And so if you go back and listen to just a few of my videos, you should not hear where I'm trying to convince. Believe me what I'm saying. You should believe it. I've never said anything remotely like that. Benjamin Creme, I think, kind of was a good example for people like myself talking about this information, because he goes, his job was super easy. All he had to do was tell you about Maitreya. The only thing he had to do was get over his fear, I guess, of looking stupid and crazy, and just tell you. You can do with it whatever you want to do with it. And I really followed his role in that, and I used him as a role model in that regard in every one of these videos and when I talk to people about it. If I am guilty of trying to convince somebody, I'll say this, I'm not perfect at that, but if I am guilty of it, it's when I get into political discussions with people, because I'm pretty passionate about my politics. And I'm having to really look at that and not try to be like that, because it's not helpful. But when it comes to Maitreya, I don't care what you think, how you think. I know that most people probably don't believe what I have to say or think I'm totally nuts for saying it. But here's the thing. All I have to do is tell you about it. Once you know about it, that's it. Maitreya can now enter your life, whether it's in the media or on TV or actually in your life, and it will not infringe upon your free will by you just knowing who he is. But as Benjamin Creme said himself, my job's pretty easy. That's why I don't get paid for it. I would demand a lot of money if I had to try to convince people this information. I mean, it would stress me out. I'm not stressed out at all about talking about this information, really, to be honest with you. I believe it 100% based on my own personal experiences, but also based on applying what Maitreya said. Maitreya himself has been asked in the Asian community of London, because they were suspecting him to be the Imam Mahdi. They asked him, people were asking him, are you the Imam Mahdi? And he never says yes. He won't say who he is or what his role is in humanity until on the day of declaration. Nobody will really know for sure. He's never going to let the cat out of the bag. He's never going to let it slip accidentally, nothing. And he'll probably, if asked, he's not going to say yes, he's not going to say no. So when people asked him, he didn't say, no, I'm not that. He just said, if I'm the Imam Mahdi for the Muslims, then what about the Messiah for the Jews, or the Christ for the Christians, or the world teacher for all of humanity, or the fifth Buddha for the Buddhists? What about them? They're just a part of this whole plan too. It's not just about the Christians or just about the Muslims, right? They're not the only ones that got it right, but what he says is these are just names. And these names cause confusion in the minds of people. That's why people have such a hard time when I use the term the Christ. I'm not using it referring to him as a pedalized demigod that I worship. I don't worship Maitreya. He doesn't even want my worship, let alone anybody else's, right? He only, and this is what he said, he only wants to be looked to and referred to as a teacher, because that's who he is. But my third grade teacher, my piano teacher, my guitar teacher, my, high school, or a college professor, anybody can make those claims of being a teacher. He's just a teacher for the entire world. But then he goes on to say, don't be attached to the form of the teacher by the way he looks, by what he says. Just take the teaching and apply it. If what he says is true, then there is truth to what the teacher said. And this goes for any teacher, really, not just Maitreya. My guitar teacher, the reason why I loved him so much and thought he was such a great teacher is because when I applied what he was teaching me, it worked. You know what I'm saying? I could start playing the songs that I couldn't play before. I started having an understanding of music better than I did before he told me. It's the same thing with Maitreya. The reason why I know he is who he is as a teacher, as a great teacher, is because he said some very simple things to me, and I applied it to my life, and it changed my life. And you and nobody else can convince me otherwise that he's not a great teacher. If you do not believe him to be the Christ, that is fine. I am cool with that. I understand why you don't see it the way that I see it. But there's no truth to me trying to convince you that that's him. That's why I have no fear with people investigating this information for themselves and coming to the conclusion that they don't believe it. That's why I've said over and over again, maybe not in every video, but I say it a lot, is if you get to the end of your investigation and you see there's no truth to it, I'm fine with that. I respect people who don't just close the door outright about this on this information, but yet investigate it and they go, I don't think there's any truth to this. Gary's nuts. At least you took the time to do it. But anyway, thank you very much for your comments, and you're welcome to comment again. And I have no problem with you commenting, as long as it's not disrespectful or trolling. But if you have a question you want me to answer directly, please be more specific in your questioning. That's it. That's all. That would be my only request to you, okay? All right, enough of that. Now, your light before free. You just commented, it says 5 minutes ago, so you're like fresh off the press here. The CIA hired 1,500 Nazis, check Operation Paperclip. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? Say it's not anything to do with what we talk about here. Number 2, if you have a master, there is a slave to that master. Yes, that slave is their personal self. They are in total control of themselves as a divine soul. When I say master, they're not masters over other people, they're masters over their own divine nature. They've mastered what it means to be divine. So to say that there's a master and a slave, there's no truth to that, and that's all there is to that term. Somebody could be a master craftsman. Is there a slave? You know what I'm saying? Somebody could be a master at being able to play the guitar or the bass or the piano. Does that actually make them, is there a slave there somewhere in that context? They have mastered what it means to be a divine human soul. They live their life 100% in that way. They never once deviate from that anymore. They live life totally without seeing any other separate people from themselves. They only see unity. They only see oneness. They live life with this joy and this creativity and this wonder like that we had when we were children in that way. They are totally open-minded to the people in their life. They have no prejudice, none. They have the wisdom of the ages at their fingertips. You can ask a master any question and they don't even have to look it up. They already know that they know that they know it. And yet present it to you very simply and not be too complicated with it. They can break it down like a fraction to the very lowest common denominator. And they know nothing but love. And there's nothing that you could say or do to any one of them that would pull them out of it. And then what they will tell you, because they are going to tell us this, is that's our potential. That's exactly who we are. We're not living life like that now because we're still in the process of it. And then they're going to say that they too were just like us. There's no difference between us. They're not special. Each and every one of them had to go through what you were going through today. Whatever that is. And whoever is listening to this, we all have different problems and different things going on. They've done everything, they've gone through everything that we're going through. And came out the other side. And they'll tell you all it's going to be is just you doing these things, just applying the teachings and those kind of things. There is no slave to this master. So, anyway, hopefully that answers the question. And it says, there is no peace and freedom. It'll be to invigorate astonishing and ecstatic to create peace because this planet hasn't seen freedom like Maitreya can show. I want a planet full of joy, ecstasy, abundance, and growth. Peace is boring. It usually puts me to sleep. I enjoy life and existence and prefer not to sleep through it. Okay, so I think whatever. You can believe what you want to believe about peace or whatever. But according to what he's saying about without sharing, there will be no justice. Without justice, there will be no peace. And without peace, there will be no future. That peace part of it is trust. There is no freedom in the world right now. I would say even those who are in power don't have a lot of freedom. It's not like the President of the United States can just go hop on a bicycle and go ride down Pennsylvania Avenue with no security, right? He's always worried that somebody's out to get him. Where's the freedom in that? Jeff Bezos, I'm sure, is very concerned about losing his wealth. Is there freedom in that? Is there freedom in working day in and day out and not being able to explore what life has to offer? Is there freedom in that? Freedom will only truly exist when people's needs are being taken care of and there's justice everywhere in the world for every single person without exception. Then there'll be true freedom. There's a saying out there, an injustice to one is an injustice to all, right? A lack of freedom to one is a lack of freedom to all. There won't be true freedom on this planet until everybody's free. Free from the mind, free in the mind, free from conditioning, free from, just to be able to live and explore life. Far from being boring. But if you would find it boring, then I guess you'd find pretty much everything boring. But I'm quite excited about the fact that our destiny as a humanity, for each and every one of us, without exception, is to be free. You know, you don't have to take an investment course to truly be free. That's not going to give you freedom. Honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment, now that will give you freedom. And that's free for anybody to apply in their life. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, but I do appreciate your comment. And just like I said to Jaime, even if you disagree with that, I do appreciate your comment. I might not address everything, but I do appreciate it. Now, let's get on to Ray's questions. You had 3 of them in an email. Okay, so the first one, they speak of global government, which as an American with the Constitution goes against my fundamental belief that nations have to govern themselves. The Bible says God established the nations. So when we were talking yesterday, I forgot to mention this based off of this. So my question to you would be, who's they? You know, who's they that says there's going to be a world government, one world government? Certainly not the masters, certainly not Maitreya, who's the head of the leader of those masters, certainly not Benjamin Creme. And there's nothing in any one of Benjamin Creme's masters' articles that ever says that that's what the plan is. To have a one world government dominating every other country in the world, and there's no more national identity of any nation. There's no truth to any of that. Although people are definitely afraid of the United Nations because they've heard from somebody who heard from somebody who heard from somebody who heard from somebody that that's the plan of the United Nations. It's just fear. And as Maitreya would tell you, as Benjamin Creme's master would tell you, and as Ben said in one of the lectures that he had, we have no idea how far out our thoughts go before they come back to us. And when you spread fear, you have no idea how it spreads out to people and affects people and harms people. And guess what? What you sow, so shall you reap. And that fear and destruction comes back on the person. We all have within our hands the choice to make. Do we spread fear? And guess what? All the lives that hurts, it's going to come back to you in that same way eventually. But you also have you have the choice that you can spread joy and love and creative thoughts and loving thoughts in those ways, and it goes out and it affects people just like that, but in a loving way, in a joyful way, in bringing hope to them, and it comes back to you as that. The choice is yours, right? But the masters never once said anything about that. When you read Benjamin Creme's masters' articles, they never say anything about that. According to the masters, each nation has an identity. Each nation has a soul. Each nation has a divine purpose, a long-term purpose that only that nation can fulfill. Just as each and every one of us as individuals has a purpose, has a destiny that only us as an individual can do. Nobody else can do but us. And it goes far beyond this life and the next life and the next life after that. You know, we're not going anywhere. There's no death. You know, we just haven't conquered, not death, but we haven't conquered the reincarnation law yet. We haven't mastered that law yet to where we don't have to incarnate anymore. But when we become a master, each and every one of us will eventually be a master. The work that we do, the impact that we'll have on not only this planet but other planets, I know this sounds fantastical, but we can't even imagine what we can do. Jesus said, greater things than this shall you do yourself. He wasn't whistling Dixie. He was speaking the truth to people. Jesus isn't the only one that could do what Jesus did. The Buddha could do it. Maitreya could do it. These other masters can do it. And so eventually all of us will be able to do it. But each and every nation has a purpose. These masters see that purpose as sacred, see the identity of each nation as totally sacred. The United Nations being nothing but a place where governments can come together and talk it out versus shoot it out. The United Nations will eventually be the clearinghouse for the principle of sharing. So nations can just put it in a trust so that it can go to other nations. And one of the things that you had asked in a previous question that I neglected to answer or address, actually was your concern, not a question, but your concern about this nation or yourself as an individual being forced, I guess, to give it to somebody else that could do it for themselves. I guess I'm paraphrasing because it's not in front of me, but you remember saying something to that effect? The truth of the matter is that each nation, without exception, has an excess that they have that another nation, maybe not every nation needs, but another nation might need. So they can give back something. And it doesn't mean that all the excesses that every nation has is going to be taken away from them. It doesn't mean that either. It's just that when humanity, under the inspiration of Maitreya, sees as its own necessity, sees that we have to do it, our own survival depends on whether we do this or not, right? That's what's going to get it started. Is, okay, I can give a little bit of what I have over here to this nation. That nation might have something that I need, right? That nation might not have something that I need, but another nation needs it. So they can. So, for instance, the Philippines has excess of fruit. I'm just using this as an example, right? The United States might not need that fruit, but the Philippines might need natural gas from Iraq or something, right? But they might give some of their excess fruit to country X, and in exchange they get natural gas from Iraq. They might need building products from the United States, like concrete or something else, or wheat or something for bread, and then they can take some excesses from that and blah, 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 blah. And it's a very complex process. So the United Nations will have a department in the future headed up by one of these masters to be able to do all this stuff, because it's going to be quite complex and moving at a lightning pace to meet the needs of the people. But this in of itself was the only thing that will bring about peace and trust amongst these nations. But I think it might start out a little bit, okay, well, maybe I can just give one little thing. That's fine. That's the process. It's all starting. But if we look at the Marshall Plan as historical evidence of whether it brings about trust amongst the nations or peace or goodwill amongst the nations, you can use that as evidence if you need to. So, anyway. That's the principle of sharing, but the identity of these nations will never be infringed upon, just like your free will will never be infringed upon. Each nation will have the right to govern itself, have its own laws, have its own ways of looking at things, its own cultures, but the governments within these nations will start to see more and more that it's their responsibility to take care of the people. That's the sole responsibility of the governments, not to fill the pockets of the corrupt politicians, perhaps, right? The other thing is, and I'll just talk about this briefly because there's not much I can talk about it because I don't know much about it other than what I read, is there are a few nations that one of these masters had mentioned that they have a long-term purpose, like the United States, Britain, the then Soviet Union, but I guess Russia now, and now even China. But the United States' purpose is the mixing of the races. That's the reason why it's here. This long-term purpose is to create a whole new race of people based on the mixing of all the races that are here living in the United States. The purpose of England in the United Kingdom is a little bit different. It's different ethnicities living together side by side. It doesn't mean that they'll be forbidden to intermarry, but that's not the initial purpose of that nation. And then Russia is Confederate states working and living and existing under an umbrella of a centralized government, but as a Confederate states, whatever that long-term outlook and purpose is. And then China is a new form of democracy, but yet an authoritarian kind of dictatorship kind of regime, and it's an experiment. Each and every one of these nations' purposes are just experiments that the masters see that its purpose will be in the future. It might change, it might be a little bit different or whatever. But every single nation has something to give to the global community that only that nation can give. But right now they're being dominated by the larger, more richer, more powerful nations, not given a voice, right? That's the injustice out there. So it has nothing to do with a global one world government. That is just coming from somebody's fear and paranoia. Now, the other thing about it said the notion that Maitreya stated men will start to see him as God is a red flag. I believe it was message 53. And when I read Maitreya's message number 53, he never said that. Now, when the masters refer to men as gods, they're not talking about them usurping God or Jesus or whatever. It's that man will realize their own divinity and become a creative, joyful, loving being in that way. eventually perfect just like these masters are perfect in that way. Doesn't mean that that's all the masters are ever going to learn in their life, because they have far to go too. They'll tell you they still have a long way to go, and it never stops, actually. So from our perspective, they're perfect, but from these masters' perspective, from even a higher perspective of these masters, they're just beginning to learn what to do. But they've learned how to master how to be a soul perfectly. But they will look at every one of us, they'll say this to every one of us, that they were just like us. The fact that they did it is a guarantee that we will get it. You don't have to worry whether you will eventually learn how to be a loving, creative soul. The highest, imagine the highest aspect that you can imagine for yourself, right? Whether that's love or being creative or whatever. That's the highest thing you can imagine for yourself, right? That's your aspiration. You will eventually be able to manifest that perfectly. It's going to take you time, but you'll get there. But they'll tell you that we will be able to do exactly and be exactly how they are, but be us. You know what I'm saying? You'll never be Maitreya, and Maitreya will never be you, but you'll be able to manifest your love in the same way that these masters manifest their love, right? Be just as joyful and creative and free and unique as these masters are, without any kind of, and know how to live within the laws of cause and within the laws of life, never harming somebody else, being, like I said, being totally joyful and creative, never spreading fear. We'll live just like they do. And it'll be far easier for each and every one of us to learn how to be like them, because we will start to see them, we're going to be seeing them in our lives. Whether it's in the media, on TV, teaching us directly perhaps, or seeing them in their town or whatever we happen to be, or working with them on some part of the plan, because these masters aren't going to do us all on their own. So it's not like a master is going to be the only one doing the principle of sharing in the United Nations. There are going to be people in humanity helping them, this master, do this. So we'll be working with them in that way. We'll be able to see how they interact. We'll be inspired to, oh my gosh, this person, all they do is serve all day long, right? I kind of like that. And how much fun they have doing it, and how much joy it is to do that, and how much they'll spread joy to all of us in the way that they in who and what they are. Man, I want to do that too, right? So, and then they'll show us how to do it. And it'll be a far better than reading it in a book, reading it in the Bible, or watching it on TikTok how to do it, for sure. Hopefully that addresses that one. And then you said something, I'm surprised that your background as a Christian hasn't caused you to be more hesitant to the whole Maitreya thing. I admit I don't know your whole journey into this, and will look for your video on this subject. So I was initially concerned about it based on my religious background. I wasn't necessarily a religious person when I read this book, but for lack of a better word, I kind of had the residue of my conditioning there, right? It was kind of still there, clouding the way that I saw things. And yeah, I was a little concerned about it. I was also starting to read, because I was a young man when I fell into this information. I kind of fell into some other information that I'm glad I didn't get stuck in, because my life would have been ruined because of this, is full of a lot of fear about conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. I read Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, and I talked to some other people that were very much conspiracy theorists, and it did just what it's supposed to do. It gave me a lot of fear on life. I started to see things in that way too, and it freaked me out. And then I read this information, and it was different than that, and I had a harder time kind of, balancing the two, or rectifying which was which. Thankfully, I had the luck, courage, whatever you want to call it, to take it a step further and start to investigate it for myself. Read it a little bit more, but it didn't ring as true for a while. So if you were talking to Gary, who just started reading Maitreya's Mission Volume 2, he would be talking about this information in a different way than Gary, who's been at this for over 25 years, right? So, but, by me seeing Maitreya in my own life, applying some of the things that he said, seeing how it's changed my life for the better, reading Benjamin Creme's Master's articles, contemplating it, seeing the truth in what he's saying, those kind of things has changed my life. Applying some of the things that I've learned from Maitreya, Ben's master, Benjamin Creme himself, and seeing how those things changed my life. I was like, I can't deny that there's not something to this, right? And then my own personal experiences, which help, But experiences with Maitreya are just like any other experiences of life. They eventually just become your memory. And if you don't do anything with it, it's like buying a bunch of fruit from the grocery store and just going to the house and setting it on the counter. They eventually just goes bad, right? But if you eat it, it becomes a part of who you are. And then you can kind of take it wherever you are, right? And that's what I think people should do, not only with this information, but with religious information like the Bible or whatever, and not just take it as belief. When you just simply take it as a belief, you know, it's like you're going to the grocery store buying apple, banana, and some fruit, and you're all excited because you're going to be eating healthy, and you never eat it. You know what I'm saying? So what good is it for you, right? So when I started applying it is when I started to see the reality and the truth of this information. But it took me time. And everybody goes through a process of, is this true or not? Because it's been eons upon eons upon eons upon eons since these masters have been out, known for who they are in the world. We've forgotten about who they are. And all the religious dogma that's happened is quite relatively new. It's only a few thousand years old. But yet it's conditioned most of life on this planet for humanity. But if you also look at, for instance, Christianity, right? Jesus said a tree is known by its fruit. Couldn't be simpler. That's the best way to judge whether information is good for you or not, is what does it do for you when you get it, right? So what is the fruit of the tree of Christianity? Has it left people healed and fulfilled in their life with more joy, more open and loving to other people? Or has just the churches and what they've done led to something quite different than that? I mean, look historically what the Christian churches have done. You know, it's the same thing with the United States. I live in the United States. I'm very critical of the United States in a lot of ways because I love this country. I think it could be a lot better than it is. But all the things the United States have done over the past 50, 70 years or so, right, since we've been trying to dominate the world economically, militarily, what good has it done? Has it done any good? Has it given us peace? Has it made everybody feel safer? Has this war in Iraq and Afghanistan truly made everybody in the United States feel much safer and everything like this? Or are we still getting terrorist attacks here or there, bombings here or there, shootings here or there, those kind of things? Am I less concerned about my health and having the ability to go to a hospital and having my health care taken care of and me being able to being taken care of because of the work and activity of the United States and the government? But yet our politicians always promise us that if you elect them, our lives are going to get better. Do they? They don't. So there must be no truth to what they're saying. If you look at the fruit of the tree of sharing, go back to the Marshall Plan. Look at the nations that participated in it. This right there, to go back to Jaime's comment, I'm not the slightest bit concerned about somebody, and I'm not worried that somebody's going to go read about the Marshall Plan and go, oh, wait. There was a time since 1945 when the Marshall Plan took place, or 46 or whatever it was, that the United States did attack Britain. There was it's never happened. So you could say, somebody can make the claim that the principle of sharing did bring about goodwill amongst those nations, enough to bring about peace, a little bit of peace. And to kind of talk about what this other comment was, that's not boring, that's quite cool. That's what we need to do. Maitreya says, within the hearts of all of us is this longing for peace. Whether we are intellectually aware of it, whether we believe it, whether we want it or not, it doesn't matter. It's there. That truth is there within the hearts of us, within every one of us. We just need to be reminded of it. And Maitreya speaking to humanity on TV as an ordinary person is doing just that. It's waking humanity up. Slowly but surely, it's waking humanity up to the truth that's already within their hearts. We all want justice. We all want peace. We all want to see the end of hunger. We all want to live together as one family and not be afraid of each other. We all want that. You know what I'm saying? But are we living like that? No. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the comments. Look forward to more questions and comments in the future. You guys take care and enjoy yourself. And we'll look forward to putting up more videos in the very near future.
Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.